First, one brief announcement. I just wanted to mention for those who have asked that absolutely nothing whatsoever happened today in Sector 83 by 9 by 12. I repeat, nothing happened. Please remain calm.
I don't know how they see out of them anyway. Tiny, beady, squinty little things, aren't they?
Ambassador!
No, the Maker has not been kind to you. Must be terrible trying to fly at night without running into entire planets.
Are you saying the Centauri do not know what ships are patrolling their borders?
Oh, of course we know. The Maker has gifted us with great big eyes and great big scanners and great big, Well, that is no concern of yours. Look, isn't there someone else you can go and harass? My life is already so full of joy as it is.
Delenn does not walk in the same world that you and I walk in. She does not see the same. In her world, we are better than we are. We care more than we care. We act towards each other with compassion. I much prefer her world to that of my own, and I will not allow anything to threaten that.
When civil war erupts on Minbar,
our civilization will be destroyed.
Dylenn's fate will be sealed.
This ship cannot be allowed to reach home.
On an all-new Babylon 5.
You have transmissions holding.
Patch incoming signal. Full audio and video decode.
Purple files accessed.
What you are about to see has never been shown to anyone outside the Great Council.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to the number 2 TV review podcast in the Republic of Korea, Gray 17, a Babylon 5 podcast. Yes, to our Korean brethren, thanks for listening. We're almost to number 1, almost. I'm Scott, and with me is...
Emily.
Mike. Evan.
And Zooty Zoot Zoot. This is Justin.
Now you know where my censors come whenever I take your guys' your F words out.
That actually seemed like a new way to say suck it. Because they like lifted their leg weird.
Lifted the leg and all that.
Zooty zoot zoot. Now when you go back, Emily and Justin, you listen to some of the stuff I had to censure over the past year and a half. It was a zoot every time, but enjoy.
Nice.
You think I'm going to go back and listen to us?
I think you will. Just to find out how much we made fun of you in Beyond the Rim.
True.
No, I don't want to know because that might ruin a friendship.
I do. I can't.
That would ruin the friendship? Nothing else that we've done?
So speaking of which, you said what, number 1 in Korea?
Number 2. We are number 2.
God, I hope it's no one in the north because we're not worth getting.
No, it is the Republic of Korea. It is not North Korea.
Like, we're not worth.
I don't think they get a lot of American podcasts.
There was a news story that 2 kids got sentenced to like 12 years of hard labor for watching TV that they weren't supposed to. So
North Korea is the one who will actually sentence you and then your next generation to work. The one guy got sentenced to what, 5 generations of penal colony work or something like that?
Yeah, isn't that great? We just do that quietly here in the U.S.
That's true. We call that the working poor, but it's the same idea. I haven't even said what we're talking about today, so we're here today.
Class warfare. Anyway.
Kind of, actually, yes.
Yeah, actually, that is on topic.
So we're here today to talk about Season 4, Episode 13. So, guys, we are now halfway through the Season 4, and we're here to talk about rumors, bargains, and lies. So we're missing a few folks tonight, but we're going to roll with our 2 newbies and 3 first ones. And before we get started, a reminder to click all the links down below in our description. We have our social media accounts on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We also have our Patreon. If you join our Patreon at any level, you get access to our Discord page, which now has been talking about, I haven't looked at a couple days, so I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm sure it's funny. I think they were talking about Nicole's horniness a few weeks ago. I know that for a fact. And then also, if you go at the largest level on our Patreon, you get entered into our Grey Council, which are listed as our producers, and they are listed in our show notes below. Thank you very much to our producers. If you are watching on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow. And please leave a comment as well. The algorithm on YouTube has not been our friend lately. We've seen a big drop off in views, and that's because it is not sending out videos to our subscribers. So if you're not finding our videos on YouTube and you think you should be, click that notify button. That way you get notified every single time we put a video out. And again, if you can like, subscribe, and comment, that really does help us get past that algorithm monster and gets out to the people that we want to see our stuff. And if you're listening, again, like, follow, subscribe, whatever your podcast app does. And please, please, please leave a review on your app of choice. And if you can, leave us an Apple review. That really does help. And we got another one in. This one comes from Rit Akaba. Rit Akaba, I think, is how I pronounce that, from Australia. And it is, love this. I am a longtime fan and multiple watcher of Babylon 5, and I always looking for B5 podcasts and finally found the perfect one. With the first-time watchers discussion bringing their individual perspectives is so entertaining. The longtime watchers discussing the entire series in Beyond the Rim segment have actually helped me truly appreciate the entire series and all those little things I have missed along the way. Well done to everyone. Well, thank you, Rit Akaba. Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and dive in to rumors, bargains, and lies. And I believe Emily has a synopsis for us.
Yep. So Sheridan does some interesting little mind fuckery with the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. So they will accept his proposed defense pact. And then shitbag Neroon shows up and is a shitbag. As
I was discussing with Emily before we started recording, you expected Neroon to show up and not be a douchebag? Really?
Did not.
Really? Okay. No. Let's go into our first impressions with our two newbies we have tonight. So we'll go over to Justin first. First impressions, Justin. Bring out that notebook.
I know I should be crazy about how Sheridan acted in this episode. I'm not liking it. I know we have a lot of shitty fuckery going on at times, but the way Sheridan kind of handled this whole thing, I was kind of uneasy about it. And building an alliance built on deception always goes well. I love the Londo scenes in this with his interactions with Sheridan and the Drazi. I want to know more about this Rebo and Zudi team because that kind of caught my eye right off the bat. But also, I love Londo's explanation about how just in the Centauri, everything's huge. That was a lot of fun. And honestly, I did fall for Neroon's charms in this episode. Like when he first came in, I was like, oh boy, here we go. You know, he's the villain that you hate to hate. And I was like, okay, maybe he's coming around. And I'm like, well, maybe I've kind of misjudged him. Maybe he's okay. And then, boy, was I fucking duped. Anyway, that's all I've got for now.
And Emily, first impressions.
It was all right. I liked Lanier. Like, Lanier is being badass Lanier. Overheard, the shitty religious cast trying to sabotage Delenn. And, I didn't expect Neroon to not be a dick, so that wasn't really surprising. And I gotta agree with Justin. I just wasn't feeling Sheridan's little mind fuck with the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. I can't even pinpoint why it was weird, but I wasn't feeling it.
Emily's a big fan of season 4, guys. You can tell. It's great.
Yeah, I thought you said season 4 is going to be better for me, and I'm waiting.
Well, I can't control your feelings, ma'am. I can't.
I can't either.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, but it's kind of what I was referring to. Okay, let's go over to our first ones who have watched the entire series and get their first impressions. Mike.
Nicole accused me of not being able to control my feelings. This episode, I liked it. I really enjoyed the plot aboard the Minbari, aboard the White Star with...
You were right the first time. That was a cruiser. It wasn't a White Star.
You're right. It was a cruiser. And I always love episodes that feature Neroon. He's like the sort of... I don't even call him a villain. Like, I look at Bester like he's definitely a villain. I look at Neroon like a bit of an anti-hero. And I kind of enjoy his... I really enjoy his scenes in the show. So, and the thing with Sheridan, I have to agree with the others. We'll talk more about it, but overall, while I have misgivings about it, it ultimately kind of sparked joy, as they say. So, overall, I think this episode was a pretty big win for me, from the standpoint of just being enjoyable television, if not moving the needle on the whole series.
Kevin.
I like this episode. It's highly rated. I don't know that I would rate it as high as the IMDb rating of 8.0, but it's a good one. I guess hot take. I don't have a problem with the way Sheridan handled that problem. So we'll talk about that. Everything is a slog with the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, and he found a shortcut. And I just don't have a problem with it because it was to their benefit anyway. So we can talk about that. I always love when John Vickery is here as Neroon. He is far and away my second favorite guest star, because I'm going to give the top to Walter Koenig, but John Vickery is the shit. So I like that whole storyline. Man, Lanier really in this one has a great storyline. Delenn's great in this. So this is a good episode.
I think we can just say Walter's on the main cast and go with it, because even though he's not in the credits, when he shows up, it's, he's just there.
He's coming home. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, so I am the one who dogs on Sheridan a lot when it comes to him devising plans and taking weeks to do it. So I did appreciate that we got to see this whole plan being worked out in basically a breakfast, and also got to see everyone make fun of him while he was doing it. So I think that was more in line with the whole strategic mind that Sheridan's supposed to have than some of the other stuff we've had recently. And I will definitely talk about how he gets to where he gets there. But yeah, this episode, it's rated an 8.33 with the P5 score Lurkers, so around the same as IMDb. So it's definitely in the top third in terms of rankings. I don't know where I would throw it in there, but it's not a bad episode. It's also not one of the ones that I'm going to run out and watch all the time. But I do, as you guys have said, I do like what happens on the Minbari ship with Neroon, Delenn, the religious cast, the warrior cast. All of that is really great. Just kind of world building for us, because we haven't heard much from Minbar in a while, and obviously there's some stuff going down. So let's go ahead and start talking about the episode in full, and let's do the B5 Sheridan stuff first, and then we'll do the Delenn stuff. So what do you guys want to talk about with Sheridan, B5, and all of that? Justin?
I guess I'm looking forward to hearing Kevin's take on this, because it was just the whole kind of thing with him is I understand why Sheridan was doing what he was doing, but it was just cringy to watch for me. Because it's the whole wag the dog situation, you know what I mean? Like you're kind of creating this false narrative in order to kind of get what you want out of people. And it just, I get why he did it, because yes, I 100% agree. The League of Non-Aligned Worlds can be nearly impossible to work with, but at the same time, I guess desperate times call for desperate measures, but it was, and maybe I'll be able to change my mind as the series progresses, but it was just kind of rough to see Sheridan take those kind of deceptive tactics, because it just seemed kind of out of character, I guess, for him. But I get then why he was kind of laughing to himself and enjoying himself during breakfast about pulling this whole thing off.
Emily?
I think why it bothered me so much is because he seemed too perky about it. Like, I don't know, it was oddly chipper for something that's supposed to be manipulative and like kind of underhanded. And to me, it was just portrayed as a little too, I can't think of a different word than perky.
Very proud of himself.
Perky.
Yeah, just like chipper and happy. And I'm like, really? We're gonna be excited about this kind of manipulation? A little concerned about you, dude.
Then you're going to be concerned about me too, because I don't see this as bad at all. I think this is completely what you do in international affairs right now, let alone in this time period. He did not put anyone at risk. He did not force anyone to do anything. All he did was he set up a narrative and let them fall into whatever decisions they would have. And at the end of the episode, when he gets in the elevator and screams yes, it may not have worked. The non-aligned worlds may have just said, oh, they're okay, well, you guys are messing around with White Stars, whatever, we're going to deal with our own stuff. And he's still at square one. So I don't see it as anything terrible. Did he manipulate them into making a decision? Kinda, but he gave them the choice. They weren't forced into it. This isn't like a Clark regime where if you don't do what we have to say, we're going to invade you. So I think I think in this case, you guys are trying to be offended when I don't see offense at all. Kevin?
I It's a scary situation when I disagree with Justin and agree with Scott. I don't know what's going on. Dogs and cats living together, but hey, it happens occasionally.
You can't say that without finishing mass hysteria.
Okay, yeah, mass hysteria. Okay, sure. But he like you said, he didn't put anyone at risk. It's not like they were shooting at each other when all was said and done. Yeah, and as you point out, Scott, this is how international politics works. Do you think Erdogan in Turkey did that stuff with the UN because he was a nice guy? No, it's because he got stuff out of it. So I'm not finding the problem with this one. I'm sorry. I don't have a problem with it.
I don't know about comparing Sheridan to Erdogan.
Hey, it's a deep cut.
I mean,
it's a deep cut.
It's
you got to know what's going on with the UN
because he's not a good dude. But
NATO. I should have said NATO, not UN.
The same idea. Sorry. Mike, what do you got?
I objectively have the same problem, and I mean, I don't think it's being overly sensitive. I mean, he deceived everybody. He very deliberately made a deception. And yes, they made their own decisions, but they did so based on a false narrative that he put out. And so it feels icky. Now, is that the way international politics works? Yes, absolutely, 100%. It's realistic. That's what makes B5 great. But still, it doesn't feel very good from the outside looking in. But I got to say, the thing about it that bugs me the most is not even like that it's a deception and all this and that. It really bothered me that Sheridan didn't clue the rest of his own staff in on what he was doing. I mean, I guess they probably kind of figured it out as he went to each of them and gave them their little role in his play. But like, just the whole, I don't know, it was really goofy the way that he was portrayed, giggling to himself in the corner and being this evil mastermind, and then like keeping everybody deliberately in the dark over, to be honest, something that could have gone down rather seriously. So yeah, I don't know. That's I guess my 2 cents on it.
Justin.
I guess maybe at the end of the day he didn't include anybody because if it all did go south and go bad, everyone else would have plausible deniability. And maybe then he would just shoulder the whole blame himself. But yeah, even though, yeah, he acted shady. And yes, I realize that, when you're playing the game of international relations, you have to have kind of everything can't be a zero sum, outcome. But it just also infuriates me. Here we go again with Scott and Kevin having airtight logic in their arguments. Jesus Christ. But I get it. I mean, I get the rationale behind it. It still just kind of made me uneasy to watch it. But, the end justifies the means, as we know all too well.
Well, and Justin, I was going to make that point too, real quick, is with B5, that kind of is the narrative sometimes. It's more realistic than some other sci-fi. So in other sci-fi shows like Trek, it'd be the ends don't justify the means, and we have to question the means all the time. But in B5, it's like, look, we are in a place where we are still dealing with a lot of trouble after the shadows. Obviously, Earth is a problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem. The 909 worlds were beat to shit by the shadows and themselves. How do I get this galaxy or this sector of the galaxy to not be a shithole? One, everyone has to work together. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
I don't have to like it to understand it. So that's where I'll fall into that.
Kevin.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make too. They got a lot of bigger fish to fry, and they can't be spending time every time they go to the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, working with them, slogging through, trying to get basic agreement out of them for stuff. So yeah, did he manipulate them? Sure, but I just don't have a problem with it. What I was going to mention about the behind the scenes with this is JMS wrote this part of the episode because he wanted to balance it, with some levity with when the other side was a much more serious part of the episode. And Boxleitner went to him at one point. He's like, this is coming off really silly. It's like, yeah, that's the way I want it. I want it to be like that. It's like, oh, okay. But I think Boxleitner ended up liking it in the end, but he was a little slightly uncomfortable with how completely silly it was. But it maybe it went slightly too far, perhaps. But the other stuff is interesting, and it's certainly a fun philosophical discussion about what is allowable in politics, but as dirty as human politics are, this isn't even on the Richter scale.
Mike.
Well, philosophical is right, because I'm going to go ahead and be the devil's advocate and say this is the same kind of shit we drug Franklin for. It's Sheridan asserting that he knows what's best for someone else. In this case, the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. Now, maybe he does, but he is duping them into his protection plan because he thinks it's what's best for them.
Man, you're stretching pretty thin.
Someone's going to call us out on it. I don't bring it up, okay?
Manipulating somebody under your medical practice versus, hey, let's try to protect your asses when you're being stupid.
I'm going to go ahead and just disregard your religion because I know better. I'm going to go ahead and take away your sovereignty and force you into this military decision.
But everything you just said there is the point, though, I think. Take away. Force.
Yeah.
He didn't take anything away. He didn't do that. He didn't put their fleets at risk. He didn't take any of their fleets away. He didn't take away protection.
I really wish Jessi and Nicole were here right now because I feel like they would have back on this.
I have a feeling Jessi would be 100% with Kevin and I. I have a feeling.
I think so too.
Oh, you think so?
I do.
He seems like an ends justify the means type of thing to me, but
I actually would agree with that. I think Nicole would have been on signing up with us, Mike, and then I think Jessi would have been with them.
We'll have to find out. We'll have to talk about it next week.
But I absolutely do get where you guys are coming from, 100%. I just, in the grand scheme of things, it is, on the Franklin Richter scale, it is a 1 rather than a 10.
Again, I think I am in the camp that mostly I'm okay with how it went down, but I get why other people, and why, to some degree, even I look at how it transpires, and I'm like, ugh, that's shady. That's not good, but... yeah.
Kevin.
I will say one thing in the defense of the other side is that when Londo's like, "Are you sure? I don't think it's great." You really shouldn't be on Londo's side when you're talking about philosophy and might makes right type stuff, because he's not exactly the shining beacon of no one was in danger, and they did what was in their best interest, whether they understood the reasons for it totally or not.
Emily.
So the word I was actually looking for was giddy, not perky. My brain just was slow to register. That's all.
And I think the remark about it being silly from Boxleitner was 100% spot on too, because like I said before, my biggest problem with this whole thing is that he doesn't tell the other staff, and that his personal way that he's been directed to act it out is silly.
Is it awkward?
It doesn't feel good when this is kind of an otherwise pretty serious thing that they're doing. So
it's a very lighthearted take on a very serious diplomatic coup.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well said.
We've all discussed, and Kevin, you mentioned the behind the scenes stuff. I see this as we have had a lot of kind of dark and dreary times with Sheridan since his rising from the dead. And I think this is kind of a reprieve to where we kind of get the relaxed Sheridan. He gets to have a moment where everything works, because at the end of the episode, he learns that we don't know what's happening with Minbar, and Delenn's heading that way. So his little reprieve of being able to be perky, giddy, whatever, is only for a day, and then it's gone. So I'm okay with giving him this little bit.
I thought it was funny, the Ivanova bit, especially the way that she delivered it. I mean, she talked, Claudia Christian talked behind the scenes about how she really took her direction from the Dan Rathers and Walter Cronkite ilk, because they actually had her read from a teleprompter. She memorized some of the lines, but she read a lot of it from a teleprompter so that it would seem genuine as a newscaster, and that's how they told her to deliver it. But I thought the bit with her was pretty funny. It's like absolutely nothing happened in Sector 8 by 9 by 12 or whatever it was, and that was a pretty good joke, the way they did that. Now the stuff in the mess hall at the beginning, that was a little far, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the way they had him act that out, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse too much, but somebody else said something about he kept everyone in the dark so he'd give them plausible deniability about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't think when he was giggling over his cornflakes he was really thinking that far ahead.
My theory on that is he didn't involve people because that plan was so convoluted. It needed everything to go right. And the more people involved in the plan, the more people who understand it, loose lips sink ships. So I think he wanted to keep this really close to the vest. So it worked out. And again, 9 times out of 10, this could have gone somewhere else. I don't think it could have become like a problem per se, but they could have just said, screw it. This isn't our fleet. Do what you want. We're just going to continue to rebuild our fleets and have a nice day.
Yeah, I mean, and I think if they had found out that he was deliberately screwing with all of them, that probably would have hurt their chances of figuring it out later, too.
Justin.
Well, and then I just wanted to give a shout out to Peter for his couple little. We only had him for a very couple short scenes in this episode, but they were both really good ones. I, too, share Londo's disdain for most of what's country and Western. I don't understand it either. And then, just his trying to understand human psychology, and then when he's dealing with the Drazi, and just the way he webs a weave of deniability throughout that entire thing, where he finally got the Drazi. Oh, so you're telling me that you didn't request the ships? Yeah, that's exactly true, which it is. But and so it's the way he kind of worked out both of those scenes and made himself come out looking like he's completely innocent, and the whole thing was a masterstroke by both JMS and then, of course, Peter in his acting.
I do wish we had gotten to see the other side of that with Jakar, since he was also a co-conspirator. But
we've been very Jakar and Londo light here in the middle of season 4, so it's always nice when they pop in.
Where's Veer? I miss Veer.
Veer!
Did he marry that bitch? I need to know.
Part of that, too, if I remember my timelines right, Stephen First was doing some other work during this season, so he's not available to be on the call sheet a lot. I think this is when this happened. So it's not like he's off the show, don't get me wrong, but he's not as available as some of the other actors at the moment, I believe. The one thing, too, I noticed really, Justin, on the scenes with Londo, and you noticed it a lot throughout the episode, but really in those scenes, is this is definitely a Michael Vehar production. Michael Vehar is the director who always does the weird stuff with the cameras. So in this case, when you're in Londo's quarters the whole time, you're looking through his trinkets and knickknacks on his table. You're looking through. It's almost like you're a fly on the wall, literally, and that's how the camera's set up, and it stays that way. And I find that interesting. Vehar he never does like the 2-shot. He always finds a way to make it weird. And so I do like that they used Vehar for this episode.
I should have picked up on that quicker, because one of the first shots in that scene is Londo next to his portrait, and it looks kind of weird next to each other.
Yeah.
I should have picked up on that earlier than I did.
There's a couple other ones that they're main directors of the show who do some interesting stuff, but I always go back to the audio guide to Babylon 5, which was a podcast long before we were, and every time a Vehar episode would pop up, one of the hosts would go, Vehar, because they loved him so much. It's just different. It's not your normal TV production.
Well, he's quite a storied television director. I mean, he's done lots of different shows. He's probably the one with the most well, actually, not even probably. I would say he definitely is the one with the most experience of the main directors.
And up until The Road Home, which came out last year, he was the last director of a B5 project. And we may or may not talk about that as we get closer to the end of the show. Maybe not. We'll see. Anything else you guys want to talk about with Sheridan, Londo, B5, Ivanova, any of that? I do like that you guys, some of you, I think Emily, you were the one. Is this voice of the resistance thing actually going to work, or are they going to screw it up? Today it worked. It worked. Nothing happened in section blah, blah, blah. Emily's not even going to chime in on that. She's just going to ignore me.
Yeah, pretty much. Just because it works today doesn't mean it'll work tomorrow. You know how that goes.
There's those trust issues. Okay, speaking of Emily and trust issues, let's move over to Delenn's storyline. Yes. Delenn is racing towards Minbar to save her planet from a civil war where I guess the destruction to the cities is just turning the lights out. I guess I didn't see much destruction there, but okay. What do you guys want to talk about?
And stuff, and they're carrying other people.
Were there?
That was the other scene. So that was the scene at kind of almost towards the end where they actually had a full shot and they had people running around. But what I'm talking about is when they're going, before they even Neroon shows up, she's looking at like file footage of what's happening, and literally it's just the city with the lights turned out.
I was gonna say they were like people carrying other people, but like there was nothing else about the city that looked off. I'm like, did Panera Bread close early? What's going on?
Right.
There was some smoke in the one there, but then Lanier's like, "Oh, so much destruction." I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I
missed what it was like before because I wasn't seeing destruction everywhere, but okay.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood the kind of that whole scene then, because I thought she was maybe just looking at older stock footage of, like, when you pull up and look at a picture of Chicago in the background and go, "That's a nice looking city." I remember
that's what
going
I started to wonder too.
Yeah,
and
no, it's
so that's what I thought was like. I didn't think it was live. I thought she was just, this is the city I remember, and she was just looking at it very sad and stuff like that. Like, I didn't think it was a live shot that she was looking at.
I can see you thinking that because that was the worst little set piece they could have ever used for that.
Yeah.
But she does say that she's getting this stuff. I don't think she used the word live, but she's getting this feed. She's watching it. Okay. And then when they're done with the conversation, Lanier talks about the destruction to their cities. And then later on,
to be a beautiful city.
Exactly.
Like that, yeah.
And then later on, there is an insert shot where Kevin's talking about where you see smoke in the distance and people running across the soundstage. I remember that one. Yeah. Yeah. But this first one is just like literally the lights are turned off. That's it.
Man. I have to wonder, like, if that's what they think of the city looking horrible. Like, has a Minbari ever been to Chicago?
It's my favorite city.
I saw a dude take a shit in the middle of the street at like noon on a Friday. So
you should stop hanging out with Kevin. Stop that.
What happens on the red line stays on the red line.
Oh, that's true. That's very true. Okay, what do we got else, guys? Emily, you've been dogging my buddy Neroon for a while now. Let's talk about Neroon.
Do we have to? No.
Yes.
The actor who plays him does a fantastic job. I will absolutely say that because he plays it so well that my hatred for his character runs way too deep for someone on a TV show. Like, it is actually unhealthy how much I dislike Neroon. Maybe.
Man,
it might actually be fully healthy and deserved.
So many other shows you need to watch then.
That's true. Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, 100% agree with Emily. Like, that, God, Neroon, he's a character you love to hate, man. Like, he's a character I actually enjoy watching, as opposed to Emily. Like, I like it when he's on screen just because he stirs all of these emotions within you. Like, and I rode the roller coaster, man. I rode the dragon when it came to Neroon in this episode because, you know, when he first came on screen, I'm like, oh boy, here's this dick munch again. And so I was like very anti-Neroon. And then nom nom nom.
Captain Dick Munch and his warrior cast.
Yeah. You know, and
he let Marcus live. Why does everybody hate him so much?
And he let Delenn live.
Slobbering sounds you want to, but anywho, oh, here we go. Here's the train.
Choo
anyway,
choo.
Okay, right. Choo choo, chug chug, motherfuckers. Getting back on it. So then he actually looked like he was going to work with her, and I'm like, okay. And even like when Delenn was telling him, I've questioned your wisdom, I've questioned your motives, I've questioned everything, but I've never questioned your loyalty. And almost like they're framing it to where, yes, he does maybe have a very different way of viewing the world, probably a lot more pragmatically than Delenn does. So you may disagree with his thoughts and actions and everything like that, but I guess you cannot say that he's disloyal to his people and he's acting in the best interest of his people, just like. But then again, people like General Zod can make the same claim. They may have a very warped way of looking at things, but in their mind, they're working in the best interest of their people. And then so I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe he's coming around. Maybe I can actually start to kind of appreciate this guy. And then at the very end, he screws me over and says, well, mission accomplished. I'm like, he just went there to fuck everything up and secure a warrior caste victory and sow the discord among the religious caste. And I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, so it just makes that character a lot more powerful because now I can't wait. Just like he's up there with Cartagia with me now. I cannot wait to see him get his end.
It's amazing too. Like, it didn't take much, did it? Like, he shows up, and then the religious cast is like, "Okay, let's blow up the ship and kill us all."
Right?
I'm sorry, poison the ship and kill us all. I was like,
and then Lanier like saves face for everybody, and his explanation, and I guess that's why. What is it, Emily or somebody made a comment about how like this is a very, very strong Lanier episode because he saves, he helps the religious cast save face because saying this will break Delenn. If she knew you guys tried to do this, this will break her. And his explanation kind of makes sense. She does kind of have a little bit rose-colored glasses on about some things, and Lanier's the one that kind of keeps her grounded a little bit and sees things a little bit more pragmatically as they are than she does, as much as he even said at the end, I wish I could walk in her world.
That was actually a conversation back in 97 when this came out, was the talk about, okay, it seems like Lanier really is the guy who's bridging the gap here. He's the one who's really doing all this work. And JMS pointed out that no, Lanier is there for that reason because he can see the gray, whereas Delenn, he is the quote-unquote true seeker. She's the one who is going for a set path. She will not veer from that path. She will not change from that path. Well, Lanier can kind of, dabble and try to keep things in line. So it'd be very interesting. And Delenn points out in this episode where Delenn would be if she didn't have Lanier by her side.
Well, and she even says herself that she's training Lanier the way that Dukat trained her. So, like, she's training him to maybe one day be a leader of the Minbari people, but also at the same time, he's the one kind of like in one of the Batman movies, James Gordon says, someone has to stick their hands in the mud so some of us can keep our hands clean. And now we're learning that's kind of Lanier's role in all this.
All you need is love and a little bit of Lanier, and then you got peace.
You know where Lanier would be without Delenn? Riding a Harley somewhere.
That's true. Emily, what do you got?
What was I going to say? God damn it. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Thanks, guys.
We'll come back to you when you're ready.
Yeah, it was something about Neroon and basically being a shitbag. Surprise, surprise. No, this one was hard to watch because Lanier is right. Delenn is trying to see the best in everyone. And sadly, the best of Neroon is like a veneer for being crappy. Like, I know he's trying to say he's doing what he thinks is best for his people, but it doesn't feel like it. Like, it feels like it's still more about him and what he wants and not about looking at, the Minbari people as a whole and trying to figure out what would work best for them. It seems very self-centered for him and for just the warrior cast where he's looking out for them and only them and not actually all Minbari. And that really just irritates the hell out of me. But it's not surprising. I mean, he's warrior cast and that's who he's representing. So that's who he's going to look out for. It's just frustrating.
Justin.
I just need to follow up on a point that Mike made that I thought was very poignant. If Lanier's riding a Harley, I can picture the motorcycle jacket that he's wearing, and it says "Bad to the Bone," and the patch on the back is the Minbari bone crest.
Okay, we need those jackets.
I kind of feel like, yeah, I'm going to actually have to get that shirt now and see how that turns out.
Here's what you do. Here's what you do. You kind of use Sons of Anarchy, but you say Sons of JMS. And then Bad to the Bone with a Minbari head bone. That's what you do.
Okay.
Sons of the religious cast.
You know what? I'm writing that. Okay, that's my next T-shirt design. We're going to make that happen.
The Sons of JMS. The one other thing I liked that, again, just production-wise and how they set this up, and it was probably in the script. I don't have the script book to look. But I love the fact that Neroon, when we see them in the long hallway at the very beginning of their interaction, Neroon is behind his warrior cast, and then Delenn is in front of her religious cast. It just kind of gives you, without saying a word, without getting any kind of internal monologue or whatever, you see how Delenn leads, and you see how Neroon leads, and you see how the warrior cast acts, and you see how the religious cast acts. And I liked how that was it really shown without having to say a word. I like that a lot.
Who are the true heroes and who are the true cowards when it comes down to it?
Potentially, yeah. Or who trusts their leaders to, be safe or whatever. Yeah.
Those true heroes that were going to poison
everybody. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Mike.
Wait a minute.
They didn't trust Delenn enough to. I get what you're saying, and I I mostly agree with you, but come on, like
the ones who are going to gas the whole ship.
Yeah,
twice.
Lanier
There was enough stuff in there to kill 2 ships.
Yeah,
2 ships, and then Lanier lost a lung over it.
He is such a selfless guy. Like he wasn't about to take any credit for it. He didn't want to talk about it. You know, this is what he does, though. He swoops in when no one can see, does the right thing, and wants no credit.
Yeah, remember, Delenn says this is the second time I've seen you nearly beat to death.
Yeah,
and the first time was when he was protecting Londo.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's kind of like the Galahad of the story.
Yeah,
when it comes down to it.
He keeps protecting people who may not actually deserve protection.
That's true. Justin, you said he lost a lung. The way I read that is Minbari have 1 lung because she says you lost a part of your lung. So I thought we got a little bit of anatomy in there too. Like you know how Doctor Who has 2 hearts. Well, I think Minbari have 1 lung.
So do Klingons too. I think Klingons have 2 lungs.
Klingons have 2 of everything.
Yeah, they have redundant
including
systems.
2 hearts.
Oh yeah, well Centauris have like 72 dicks. So.
Is there some kind of extended universe stuff where we find out Klingons have 2 penises?
Yes.
Emily knows.
Or at
Emily
least
wrote
it
that
comes up in certain
Why am I
Facebook
not
groups.
surprised?
I knew Emily was going to get me there.
I mean, I haven't looked into it that.
Oh yeah,
I'm
sure.
afraid of what my Google searches would start suggesting.
Now you're thinking about Jadzia's and Worf's honeymoon. That's all you can think about.
I mean, I do have questions, but that's for a different day.
I totally see Emily's fan fiction being
Birds
called
and
like
the Bees with
like
Klingons.
Like the Heads of a Klingon is the name of the title of it. Or something like that.
I've got your house right here. You've brought honor. Okay, moving on.
So you guys were talking about trains earlier.
I know. We're moving on. We're gonna have a clean episode. I swear. Okay.
Because Kevin's here, so we're gonna move on, even though he didn't say shit. Okay.
What else we got for this part of the episode, if anything?
So, did anyone else think it was really out of place, that meeting room with Neroon and Delenn, like those like comfy like end couch, you know, like I don't know, almost, well, the couches on the wall, I guess, they looked really too plush. Neroon almost looked not comfortable when he was sitting there. It just, the whole thing seemed off as far as set design goes. I thought I didn't think it seemed very Minbari to me.
Yeah, I guess I didn't pick up on that so much.
Yeah, a little too human, especially when it's a Minbari ship. It wasn't even a White Star. It was definitely the cruiser, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, maybe they shot that scene later at like John Vickery's Best Western or something.
We need some pickup shots. Hold on. That is, I think, the end of the conversation there. I think, unlike some of the plots we've had more recently, where we're down to, again, an A and a B plot, it seems like they're fairly cut and dry as we're moving forward on the show. The one thing I will say is, I think it was Mike, you said that we really didn't move the plot along too much this episode. And I think we're actually moving at a pretty decent clip now for the last few episodes. Because I do believe that the first part of season 4 really does kind of spin the wheels a little bit. But I feel now that we know what's happening with Minbar. We know that Delenn is going to Minbar. We know that Neroon is doing what Neroon does best. We also know that we now have the League who says that when the White Stars go somewhere, we're going to with our fleets. We don't know where the White Stars are going yet, but at least we know they got backup. So I think a lot did happen in this episode, even though...
A lot of moving chess pieces, but not a lot of, you
got to push a pawn. Yeah, when in doubt, push a pawn.
I do have one more thing about this, which has to do with Mira. She was originally from Yugoslavia, and talking about how that part of the world really, had a lot of strife in it around this time, especially, and her being, one of their most well-known actresses before she came over here. She really liked the storylines where she got to, push for peace and work towards that kind of thing, because it was really very personal for her. And so she really liked it when JMS would give her that kind of writing. She loved how JMS wrote this storyline. And, others might seem like, others have suggested that's a little bit on the manipulative side because he's writing it for her when he knows it's so personal for her. But when she delivers, that type of storyline, man, it seems very genuine because it is. She was the type where she didn't obviously agree with the war and she thought it was, terrible. And for the people who were more, pacifistic towards the whole thing, she felt like she didn't have much other choice but to leave. She said that people after the war was over, it just nothing was the same between people because you either, you were on this side, you were on that side, or you were a pacifist and wanted there to be no war. And it just seemed like everyone was kind of in their silo, and she was kind of sickened by the whole thing. So she really delivers this type of storyline with a lot of feeling, and I thought she did a great job with it.
Justin.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Kevin, because about a week or so ago, I was reading up some stuff on the Croatian independence movement, and she actually came up because at that time, you're right, she was one of the best known actresses in the Croatian community, especially on stage and stuff like that. And she took a lot of hell from people within the independence movement because she still would work with Serbian actors. And even for like the rest of her life after she came over to the US, there were still some people who gave her a hard time because they didn't feel like she was nationalistic enough. And it's very interesting then to kind of see some of this stuff where now in Babylon 5, she's doing kind of the same thing she was trying to do back in Croatia when the war was just first getting started. So yeah, it's a really good point to bring up.
Well, and she also married a Serbian director. So that she definitely had ties to, multiple communities there. And so, you talk about having different perspectives than others. I mean, wanting to sue for peace and not wanting there to be incredibly destructive war to get to a peaceful place. It's heartbreaking that she wasn't more respected with her views on that kind of thing. But it seems like every few years some part of our world is having to learn those lessons, and it's a really awful situation, but it is what it is, I guess.
Let's go ahead and move into our questions and predictions. And again, our newbies, who we are short of a couple this week, so we won't have too many questions, predictions, but our newbies have not watched past this episode. So they're going to give us any questions that they have lingering after watching this episode, and then predict for us what they think is going to happen next. So let's go to Emily first. Questions and predictions.
Well, question number 1, has Veer's fiance or wife corrupted him? Like, is Veer still Veer, or is that evil bitch destroyed him? I gotta know. We haven't seen him in forever. I don't know what's happening with him. I'm worried. She was horrible.
Mike, we got another Emily-style question. Veer is nowhere to be seen, but her first question is about Veer.
I'm worried about him, okay? He's very sweet and naive, and she is a hag. And then, will Lanier be the one to take out Neroon? Because I feel like he needs to go, and I want to see Lanier do it. I know Minbari don't kill other Minbari, but I feel like Lanier would do that for the benefit of his people.
Didn't we learn in this episode that a Minbari won't kill another Minbari is kind of more of a regulation than a rule? Yeah, maybe a term and condition.
More like a guideline.
A guideline,
yeah. Because those religious cats are ready to wipe out some people.
They take themselves out when they do it, so it's like a group thing. I don't know.
Didn't they actually elaborate on this at some point, or did we just talk about it?
A lot of this has to do with the Great Council being out of the picture. So
they kept the peace.
The old caste wars are back, and back with a vengeance, apparently.
That rule probably doesn't matter anymore. But either way, I feel like that's something Lanier would do to save Delenn or the rest of the Minbari people, because Neroon is terrible.
Any predictions, Emily? I mean, your last question could be a prediction if you wanted to give it a little bit more oomph.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a question prediction, I guess. But no, that's really it.
Okay. And Justin. Oh, Emily, sorry, I cut you off.
I miss Veer.
Justin.
For Emily's sake, can we just get a welfare check on Veer, please?
Yes, please. Someone do a welfare check.
Just make sure he's okay. Now, I have one question. Was the attack on Neroon staged, or was it actually part of or was the attack legitimate in order for Neroon to kind of sell his kind of undercover bit that he was running? That's one thing that's one lingering question I had left over from this episode.
He did say it was a grazing blow. So
yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if it was completely staged, but you never know. Prediction number one. Now that Sheridan has what he wants, I think I think we're starting to see the beginning of the fleet that he's going to assemble to go against Clark. And I think this is kind of the beginning steps of him putting together, because even now that the non-aligned worlds are signed on, wherever the fleet needs us, we'll go, we'll follow. It's just going to be a matter of time before he starts thinking about making a move against Clark militarily. Leading into that, prediction number two, it's going to be weird to see, but we're going to be seeing Centauri and Narn fight side by side as member of Sheridan's fleet against Clark. And that's going to be a very awkward situation of them having to fight together against something. And then three, I have a bad feeling the Warrior Cast is going to win the Minbari Civil War. Something's going to happen. The Warrior Cast is going to win, and it's going to result in something like, because the religious cast is going to blame Delenn for trusting Neroon in the first place. So they're going to excommunicate her. Neroon or whoever's ruling Minbar for the warrior cast is going to basically exile her. And that's going to cause Lanier to have to be kind of self-imposed exile as well out of the result of this whole thing. And I don't know what's going to happen after that, but if it ever gets resolved, I don't know, but it's going to be a situation to where Delenn and Lanier are going to be on their own for, I think, a significant amount of time.
Emily, you got something else?
Yeah, I was thinking back to the last episode. So is anyone keeping track on what's going on with Mars and Edgar's and that telepath thing they were smuggling last episode? Is anyone keeping track of what's happening with that, or are they just kind of not worried about it right now?
Yeah, they're not going to answer that question, Emily.
Yeah, and where's Bester? Because I feel like we haven't had any Bester fuckery for a while, and it'd be nice for him to show up.
We'll go ahead and end it there for our newbies. For those who haven't joined us before, we will have our end credits, and then Mike, Kevin, and I will come back to discuss all of these questions and predictions. And then next week, we will be back here with the newbies and everyone else to talk about moments of transition. So we will be back here next week to do that. And again, reminder to click all the buttons, like, subscribe, follow, as well as check out our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The newbies are really active. Well, all of us are really active on our Facebook. And then the first ones are fairly active on the Twitters. And then if you can, join our Patreon. We do have our Discord with both a general conversation and a spoiler conversation thread. So we will chat with you there or chat with you next week. Until then, I have been Scott, and with me has been
Emily,
Mike,
Kevin,
and I'm Justin.
And fuck Neroon.
Exactly.
Neroon. No, don't. I still kind of like him.
Thank you for listening to Grey 17, a Babylon 5 podcast. You can find all the places to listen to and watch this podcast at anchor.fm/Grey17podcast or youtube.com @Grey17podcast. We want to hear from you, so join the conversation at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or Patreon. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review where you are listening to or watching this podcast. Grey 17 is not affiliated with, and the podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by Warner Brothers or any other owners of the Babylon 5 copyright. All clips included in this podcast are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. They are included here for purpose of review, and no infringement is intended. The opening and closing themes are available from Falling Matter on YouTube.
And what's out there?
The rim,
And beyond that?
the truth.
What's up with Veer? Welcome back to Beyond the Rim. Again, this is a spoiler section, so if you have not watched past this episode, or if you don't remember what happens in this episode or after this episode, please leave now and come back next week. And if not, we'll go ahead and dive into the questions and predictions from Emily and Justin. And the first one I wanted to hit on, guys, is Justin does want more Rebu and Zudi. And so I'm looking forward to season 5 to see what Justin feels about Penn and Teller, because they are.
And I'm going to remind you, you're saying that you're looking forward to season 5.
Hey,
okay.
That's actually one of the better episodes. That's the episode written by Neil Gaiman.
You're right, it is.
And I'm going to hold out hope for season 5. Season 1 was better for me. We'll see. We got our only sex scene of B5 with Byron. So, okay, so I'm looking forward to seeing if Justin remembers Rebo and Zudian.
The great Penn and Teller.
He likes Penn and Teller. We'll see. The first question we had is, has Veer's fiance corrupted him?
No.
No.
If anything, if they are together, which we have no proof of one way or the other, but if anything, my guess is she would probably get a little more changed in that situation more than he would.
Yeah, Veer's going to be doing the corrupting. He even said so at the end of that episode. Is I hope to help her see the evil of her ways, or whatever he said. So, but yeah. Hey, not the first Nazi you wanted to screw in B5. Remember, there was the blonde too. Then Justin asks, can we get a welfare check on Veer? And you will do absolutely that in 2 episodes. Veer will be on No Surrender, No Retreat, and he'll wake up from a nightmare, so it'd be great. And then the next question, will Lanier be the one to take out Neroon? Well, about that, guys.
Neroon is going to take out Neroon.
Kevin and I were chatting on the side as the newbies were dogging on Neroon left and right about how he's a dick and how he's a traitor and how he's screwed them all over. Like, no, you're good. No, that's not what's happening here.
You know, at this point, doesn't Neroon plan on being a treacherous bastard?
You know, I had that conversation. I reviewed the next week's episode with another podcast about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. And we were having that very same conversation. I believe that Neroon is like Schrodinger's cat. You know, he could go either way until about midway through next week's episode. Other people say that no, this is part of Delenn's and his plan the entire time. He is getting the leader of the warrior caste out in the open so they can do what they want to do. But I don't know. It'll be interesting after we watch the next week's episode again to see what they think. But I don't know.
With everything that's gone on, I was actually shocked that nobody jumped to that conclusion. They didn't speculate any conclusions other than Neroon backstabbed Delenn. You know, I thought for sure Justin or somebody would be like, ha.
The closest we got to was Justin asking if the attack was staged or not.
That's the next question. Yeah. And to be honest, we don't know, do we?
But that was more about, is Neroon a treacherous bastard than it is, oh, well, you know, that was all conceived by him and Delenn. I don't think he's even thinking that at this point, which I agree with you, Scott, is a real possibility. But I'm of the thinking that he was planning on being a treacherous, bastard until he decided not to be.
Yeah, because there's that one scene next week, and I haven't watched in a few months, so I'll be less vague next week. But he goes to the leader of the warrior caste and starts talking about how there may be a path to peace that doesn't include wiping everybody out. And the warrior caste leader says, no, we got to be very fast and we got to take them out hard. And that way they don't come back for another 1,000 years. And so I think that's when Neroon truly changes and decides. But I could see it going both ways. I mean, throughout the episode until the very last second where he gets on his shuttle, it seems like he's on board with what Delenn's doing. So it could go either way.
Yeah, and I'll have to do some research and find out if JMS has ever weighed in on that particular question. I'd be interested to see.
I do think Neroon, Kevin, is kind of your point saying he's one of your favorite, guest stars. I think he has one of the best arcs of any guest star. Because we think he's, as we saw tonight, we think he's an asshole the entire time, and he is. But at the end of the day, he does the ultimate sacrifice to save not only his people, the warrior caste, but to save all his people. It's a big move. And actually, I think you see it throughout the episodes we have Neroon in. He starts to learn to trust. Through Marcus fighting him, he starts to realize, okay, these humans aren't all bad. He does the same thing with Sinclair back in season 1. So, I mean, it's definitely a good arc of a character. Anything else on Neroon?
Not till next week.
Yeah, there'll be some more Neroon next week.
Yeah.
Okay. What's up with Mars, Edgars, and the telepaths?
Oh, we'll be finding out soon enough on that one, too.
Yes.
Yeah, Garibaldi's going to be really into that shit pretty soon.
Well, I think it's 3 episodes from now, Garibaldi will head to Mars and meet with Edgars, and so we'll have a lot more there. But the Edgars storyline really does stretch out to season 5 as well, too. So we'll get a lot more of that as we go.
Well, and I'm looking forward to Justin's reaction when we get to see Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. on the series, because for a lot of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, he was Alfred on Batman the Animated Series, and very underrated part of that series, I think. So I like him in this part, although unfortunately it is fairly short.
Mm-hmm. When does Edgar's kick the bucket? It's season 5, right?
No.
It is season 4?
It's this season.
So we're cleaning up the mess in season 5.
Yeah, other than his voiceover work, which is in a couple other earlier episodes, I think he's only in 1 or 2 episodes in this season, and then he's done.
It always amazes me how compressed season 4 is, and we all know why it's compressed, because they thought this was the end. But it always amazes me how fast this thing moves in the next few episodes. And then finally, when will Bester be back? He'll be back next week. In Moments of Transition. He's the B-plot.
Soon.
Yes. And then he'll really be back with a vengeance when we get to the Face of the Enemy, which is coming up in a few episodes as well, too.
That is really going to blow the newbies' minds.
I'm still surprised that Justin, to this day, thinks that Bester's being Bester, but he's not involved in the Garibaldi plot. So it's going to be fun to see.
I think he's going to kick himself and go, yeah, I should have seen that.
Yeah. And moving on to predictions, we've got... This is the beginning of the fleet to go against Clark. And the answer is no, but kinda.
I mean, they're going to be the protective fleet.
Exactly.
While, Sheridan is able to take the White Star fleet and anything that is left over from the Earth forces that crossed over and take them back. And the League of Non-Aligned Worlds and anything else is going to be the fleet that'll protect B5 and any other area that might be...
And reclaim territory as well, too, because they will protect Proxima after they take Proxima.
Yes, true.
Yeah, it's and as much as I dog on Sheridan and his strategic powers, that's a very smart move. He knows that Clark has been spending years telling people that the aliens are coming to get you. So he makes very clear that this is a human fleet coming after you, not an alien fleet.
Yeah, except he's using White Stars, which...
detail. But then Clark pulls out human carriers with shadow tech. So, I mean...
Sure. Yeah, I don't know how that would have gone with some folks when, alien fleets are left to protect Proxima 3 and stuff. But my guess is at that point, they wouldn't be too choosy.
At that point, they're watching this fleet continue to move forward and not worrying about what's been lost, but what's still ahead, I think, at that point. Centauri and Narn will end up fighting side by side against Clark. Same idea.
I gotta dog Justin a little bit here. There is no Narn fleet left to do much fighting.
That's true. Yep, they are basically back to the Stone Age at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And also, too, as we just said, there's not going to be any really true alien presence in the attack except for Vorlon tech. We will see next couple weeks, and actually maybe this week, is we will see that Londo will try to get Jakar to join in with the work that he's doing with Sheridan to kind of bolster up the defense mechanism. But that's really about as far as it goes.
Tough sell. I won't sign on the same page as you, bud.
Yep. And the Warrior cast is going to win the Civil War, and Delenn will be out on her own with Lanier, ostracized from her people.
Nope.
Delenn will be ready to sacrifice herself to end this thing next week, but again, Neroon will fix it for her.
And then she gives up her power to give it over to a new Great Council with the workers having the
majority. Yep. Which, even in this episode, the workers' cast get no mention at all. They're just watching all this shit happen. Which is, there's a conversation online is like, and we've had this conversation here for sure. Did JMS even think about the worker cast in season 1? Well, regardless, the Minbari didn't think about the worker cast until next week's episode. So, anything else you guys want to talk about with this episode before we move on? Before we transition to a moment, maybe?
No one predicted or speculated that we might end up with Emperor Lanier. I'm shocked.
I think when we did the prediction stuff, there was some talks about, but you're right, it hasn't come up in a long while. And we've still got a good almost season before we get Emperor Londo, because we'll have the region for a while.
Yeah. Well, ish.
Yeah.
Was he really running anything, or was he just drunk all the time?
He's the poor guy's got puppet masters in 2 different directions. One arm's being drugged by the Drock, and the other one's being drugged by Londo. It's great. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think it's also too because Vera has been off the playing board for a while, and people tell me in the comments if I'm mistaken, but I'm 99% sure this was the season where Stephen first went off and did some of his own stuff for a while, and that's why they didn't have him show up much. It was either this season or maybe season 3, but I think it was right now. But he'll be back next week, so we'll get that. So guys, until next week, again, reminder to click all the buttons and please join us on our social medias, and we really do appreciate all the help you're giving us to help grow this channel. So please, please, please leave reviews. And as I mentioned at the front end, the YouTube algorithm is kicking our ass right now. It really is. So if you can comment, like, share, click that notify button on the YouTube side of things, that would really help us a lot. I appreciate it. And we'll be back with you next week to talk about moments of transition. Until then, I've been Scott, and with me has been
Mike
and Kevin.
And have a good one. See ya. Bye. Clicky, clicky.
Zooty, zoot, zoot. I'm sorry. I apparently mistook you for a human with some taste and sensibility.
Zooty, zoot, zoot.